Amsterdam is also the largest city of this country. It's also the capital of the Netherlands. For many people that comes as a small surprise because they think about the government and they know that the government is in The Hague. And that has grown like this historically because during the 16th century we were still a part of the Spanish, well, the Netherlands was officially owned by the Spanish throne, and it was William of Orange who started the Dutch revolt against the Spanish, and he resided a lot of time in The Hague and the area around there. That's why when the Netherlands became slowly an independent country, the first government was actually in The Hague, and that's also why it has always stayed there. But the capital is really Amsterdam, because Amsterdam has always been the most important city of the country, or at least ever since the 17th century Amsterdam has always been most important city of the country. The 17th century we often refer to as the golden century of the Netherlands, because during that century we ruled the world. Just for 1 century, and we still talk about it. That says enough. But for 1 century we were really the center of the world economy. Many of you know that, because the ones from Australia know that the first inhabitants on your, the first Europeans on the continent there were Dutch. That Dirk Hertog, he nailed a pewter plate on a tree in 1606, and a few decades later another Dutch explorer took the plate back again. I don't know why he did that, but at least we know that we have that very pewter plate. We have it now in the National Gallery. Tomorrow you can go on an excursion and see it if you want to. But also New Zealand was called after a Dutch province, after Zealand. And the ones from America, of course, know that New York used to be called New Amsterdam. It was in the times that Peter Stuyvesant was the governor after Henry Hudson had explored that area. So during that time I was making a joke out of it almost, but really the Dutch ruled the world for a century more or less. And it was a very small country that was ruling the world. And you may ask yourself why, and today you can get some of these answers, because we are actually going to the oldest industrial district in the world. We don't sell it like that, because if we write down on your for your excursion in oldest, industrial district, you all think I'm not going there. But that was the windmills were actually the first form of industry. Windmills originally are not Dutch, but it was a Dutchman who invented the crankshaft, and it was at the late 16th century. It took him a few years before he took it to Amsterdam. It was floating on the water so that he could turn it easily. And it was there was a crankshaft inside, and the crankshaft is changing the rotating movement of the sails into a sawing or a grinding movement. And that because of that we could start using the wind power for industrial purposes. And that was a big change. So that was one of the key elements of the success of the Dutch Golden Century. And the city of Haarlem, of course, is worldwide known also because of the neighborhood in New York called after it, Haarlem. There were more areas named after Dutch places in New York, like Brooklyn comes from Breukelen. So there's still many things in New York that remind us of this period. This is the old gas factory. So right here nowadays, many of these old factories and old industries, we have sort of made them into, we have new life into them. So this is a famous nightclub actually, and also during the day they serve drinks, and there's sometimes some live music, good DJs here. So it's a popular place to go out. Is it a dye mill to make paint? So this one is still functioning. The miller is very enthusiastic about it, and we actually can drive up, but I don't think we can cross it right now. But we can. But we are going to stand somewhere where we have the beautiful view, because to the left we can see the Zaanse area. So it doesn't matter that the bridge opens right here, because we can be You see the very green windmill? That is an old pole track mill, we call it. They're kind of rare in the country. It's an old wood sawing mill, and the entire windmill can turn with the wind direction. Because the windmill always wants to face the wind direction. They put some cloths on it and they catch even more wind. So that's the green one. The whole windmill has to turn. And if you see the one next to it, to the left, that's the one that we are going to visit. That's the one where the miller is also inside, and he will give you a very nice explanation about the way that he operates the windmill and about the history of the monument. So they make paint there for paintings, for artists. The wife of my father is an artist herself, and she often asks me, can you bring me some Berlin blue or something else for this window, because she loves to paint with, well, naturally produced. So we can see the Dives to the right hand side where they make all the nuts and everything, and here to the left hand side we can see that very small ship that is holding us up a little bit. Yeah, to the left hand side in these buildings people are living. Many of them were also moved to this area. You can see the green color, that's the typical color for the Zaan area, and there's also quite a few employees of the Zaan area that work here. They are actually living in this area. So these ones people live. We really have to make sure that it's all connected to each other. So, but you can also have time on your own, because there's a lot of other small shops and museums. There's an old bakery, there's an old grocery store and everything. Sometimes they ask you a small additional entrance fee, because then they also operate on their own. So partly it is combined with the whole Zaanse Schans area, partly they operate on their own. But that is the possibility. If you join us, you get demonstrations in the cheese place and in the wooden shoe place, whereas if you come as an individual, they're not going to take 5 minutes to explain. That is the difference.
Along there, they have an old watch museum, they've got an old French tea house, a supermarket, and you're free to go walking around there as well later on in your free time. Cool. Okay, so later on when you have your spare time, there's an old traditional Dutch bake. You can see in the distance, that one directly opposite us, that's an old sawmill. So you can see that there's some large trunks of wood lying there on the plank going up into the inside of the windmill. It's difficult to see, but there's actually like dozens of wooden trunks resting in the water. So they import those trees from overseas, and depending what type of tree it is, the tree actually rests in the water for a few months, and that drains all of the sap out of the trees. So before they can saw the trunks up into planks, they need to have them sitting in the water, and then the windmill proceeds to do all of the work for you. So you attach the chain around the tree, the windmill starts turning, it pulls the plank out of the water, up the ramp, through the whole windmill, through the sawing planks, and out the other side. Every area of the Netherlands has its own sort of endemic style of architecture. You notice that some of them have little sort of buildings coming to the front, heading forwards from the houses. They almost look like tea houses coming out towards the river. So this was something people would do historically if they had a really good year, a really good harvest, a really good business year. They would build these areas forward in their houses as a way to show that they could afford to increase their houses. So when you see they have nice long ones coming forwards, you know, the old owners of these houses are doing very well business-wise for themselves.
Orthodoxie medium Santa Claus.
No, marijuana doesn't grow well here. It actually is. It's not growing too well here. In the summertime, it grows a little bit, but there's a lot of marijuana here. People, they have plantations inside. That's also how the police finds these plantations, by tracking the electricity bills. The electricity bill is very high, Then they go and inspect what is going on in the house. And growing marijuana large scale was just illegal, like anywhere else. The coffee shops even are only allowed to sell it, they're not allowed to buy it. So nobody knows how they get their supply. Because officially speaking, marijuana is not legal in this country. It's only that the Ministry of Justice is having a policy of tolerance. Look at this to the left, we call this an American windmill. And you can see here the difference in water level between the land and the river also well. So when the first people moved into this area, actually the land was not below sea level. It was at the same level more or less. But they started to drain out the water, then automatically all the water goes to the ditch. If you dig a ditch, then from the rivers it would go to the North Sea. And then later on, because if you drain out the water of peat soil, the soil is sinking and shrinking. It's like a sponge. And that is why it actually became, it all was below sea level. So Henry Hudson left on when he discovered New York. There's a plaque with Hove Moon on it, just next to the door to remember this. We call that tower also the Tower of Tears, because that's where always the women were waving goodbye their husbands and crying. Sometimes they were also crying when their husbands returned. And from all the crying we got the canals. Then to the left you can see all the bikes, because this is the central railway station. That is what it is. So like 100,000 people, they arrive here each morning and they walk in Amsterdam, and then they go and cycle to their work. So then we're going right underneath the Doubletree Hilton Hotel. People are sleeping above us. Out before we can start building a new building here. There used to be a building with asbestos here. And that big green building to the right was just built on top of the tunnel that we just were. It's a scientific museum. And Tom here to the left, and it's also a Dutch company. And then a beautiful lake which is called the Ei Lake. In Dutch, Ei means old, in Old Dutch it means water, is right ahead of us. And then we are at your cruise ship, because we can see here to the right hand side Avalon Panorama. It is docked very well in Amsterdam. The docking permits for these houseboats, they ask sometimes $500,000 for it, the ones that are docked around here. So you have one night here to spend. So you're right here at the city center. In front of us is the Central Railway Station, and you're welcome on board. They probably want to see your passports, because it's the first time that you come on board. So they want to see your passports as you come on, and then they will give you your